Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about roots, what they are, how do we find solutions to equations of exponents and equations of roots. So the first thing we need to talk about is what is a root. So let's say I have the equation x to the n equals k, and I have to solve for x. A root tells me I can do the inverse of a power. So x to the n is a power, I take the nth root. So I know that 2 to the third power is 8, so the cube root of 8 is 2. They're used to undo one another. Now, a fractional exponent is the same as a root, so x to the 1/3 power is the same as the cube root of x. So now if I give you an equation with a fractional exponent, we can write it as a root, and we can evaluate it. So 16 to the 1/4 power really means the fourth root of 16, which is 2. 1/36 to the half power means the square root of 1/36. We take the square root of the numerator and the denominator separately. Square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 36 is 6, and we wind up with 1/6. And the same thing with 25 to the 1/3 power. Cube root of 125, and we get 5. We can also use this to solve equations. So the example is that volume equals 1/3 pi r cubed for a cone, and it asks us to solve for r. So first step would be to multiply both sides by 3. Then we divide by pi. We always got to isolate the variable. And now to undo r cubed, we take the cube root of both sides, which is the same as raising it to the 1/3 power. The cube root of that whole left side is r. So if we want to isolate a variable, we use all of our inverse operations, and the new inverse operation we have is that a root undoes a power. Now we're going to start seeing some equations with exponents. So we have x cubed equals -8, or x to the 4th equals 16, or x to the 101st power equals 0, x to the 19th equals -1, and so on. So what we see here is that sometimes we have one solution, sometimes we have multiple solutions, sometimes we can't have a solution. We got to think through this. X cubed equals -8 means a number multiplied by itself has to be negative. So this has to be a negative number. So my solution to this is always going to be a negative number. Now, if I raise something to an even power, I'm always going to get an even number, and there's two possibilities for it. So a number raised to an even power getting me a positive, there's two ways to do it. Now, to get 0, x has to be 0. So the only thing raised to a power to get you 0 is 0. Now, raised to an odd power, x to the 19th, you multiply by itself 19 times to get a negative. The only thing that'll work there is a negative number, because 19 negatives multiplied by each other wind up with a negative. And that's why this bottom one, we have a problem, because if you take a negative number and multiply it by itself 20 times, you're going to wind up with a positive. And a positive number raised to the 20th power is a positive as well. So this one, no matter what you do, you're going to get no real solution. If you try to take the 20th root of -1 in your calculator, you're going to get an error. And the error just means that there is no real solution when we're finding out what x can be. So here's a nice table which shows you if n is even or odd, and if a is positive or negative, how many potential solutions we can get. And the more we practice this and think about what's happening with the negative signs and how many negative signs do we have, is whether we're going to get a positive or a negative. And that's what I want you thinking about every time you set up and try to solve for x in these problems.